Warm greetings, everyone. On behalf of W4W Foundation, a think tank initiated as a citizen collective, we welcome you to another session of the Wednesdays for Water. The conversation today is optimizing biology-driven water cycles and climate. The objective of Wednesdays for Water is to engage in water conversations with water experts, grassroots practitioners, policymakers, and youth to explore the complex intertwined issues associated with water and the possible solutions. It has expanded since then to have more activities like Friday Waters and Monday Munching and Musing with Women for Water, besides organizing on-site water workshops, water walks and talks, seminars, special courses, and conference panels to continue the water conversation in various possible ways. In Wednesdays for Water and all the online sessions, the idea is to gather the knowledge at one place to be able to make it accessible to as many people as possible. Since at W4W, we strongly believe that water conversations are crucial to move towards water conservation. Do visit the website www.w4w.in for more details. Today's session is co-hosted with the International Association for the Study of Commons, IASC, founded by late Dr. Eleanor and Vincent Ostrom from the Indiana School of Bloomington. The IASC series is meant to connect with water workers of Asia or those working in Asian region on the water matters to expand the idea of water commons. My name is Mansi Bhargav, and I'm also the host from W4W Foundation as well as IASC Asia coordinator. As we're discussing today, optimizing biology-driven water cycles and climate, we see that there is already an interesting way of looking at landscape, looking at water cycles, and looking at climate. And to keep it short from my end, we have today's speakers as Steve Boniwell and Ali bin Shahid and Haadiya Abbas as a discussant for the session. Before I invite them for the session, first of all, thanks a lot to all three of you to really make time available for us and record your knowledge with us. So I will first introduce them and then invite them to make a joint presentation. Steve Boniwell is a passionate about rehydrating and regenerating landscapes. He believes this is the most crucial work of the time. As a dedicated soil and water advocate, he is a permaculturist and systems thinker, always eager to learn and experiment, and he has created maximum infiltration, a method that increases water infiltration time by 100 times, enabling rapid rehydration and regeneration of nature. With over 12 years of experience as a landscaper and handyman, which was quite an interesting word for me, and 10 years as an earthworks machine operator, he has experience in building dams and working in quarries. And I'm going to keep it here itself and then let him talk further about his skills and other ideas about the world of saving water. Because his diverse skill set and commitment to sustainable practice drives his mission, and that's what we are here to learn, especially towards the natural environment. Our second speaker today is Ali bin Shahid, who has over 8 years of experience as CEO and founder of the startup tackling water scarcity. He is a passionate leader in environmental restoration and climate resilience, certified in permaculture design, and an author of multiple engineering papers. He innovates at PSKL, Water for All. They use low-tech solutions like fuel-less pumps and unpowered sensors to conserve and distribute water, revitalizing desert and arid regions sustainably. His diverse skills in engineering, Greek medicine, permaculture, and martial arts. I wish I can see some martial arts today, but not possible physically. But see how nature and the way we look at nature brings together. But importantly, his martial art coaching enriches his problem-solving approach, other than his engineering and permaculture skills. He views challenges through a multifaceted lens, ensuring solutions are innovative and grounded in deep understanding of human and environmental factors. His goal is to pioneer equitable climate care solutions, contributing to a just, sustainable world. So with this brief introduction, may I invite both of you to take charge of the presentation and also let me know how you would like to go about it. And thank you so much once again for agreeing to record and register your knowledge with us. And I'm eager to learn from you. Over to you, Steve.
Thank you, Mansi. Okay. How's that? Can everyone see that?
Yeah.
Or you're only Yep, you can see the presentation
Yeah, I
there.
can see the presentation. Yes, go ahead.
Fantastic. That's good. So we're an Australian land regeneration company, and we're unique because we combine unpowered technology to accelerate living systems, and that creates multiplying and compounding effects that's quite unique and exciting. I'm lucky today to have my co-founders Ali, and Myra is also a co-founder as well, our third co-founder. Our focus is to reduce drought, fire, flood, and changing climate by rapidly restoring water cycles. And we emphasize Earth systems thinking and the strong role that water has in all these things that sometimes people don't appreciate. Today, we can focus a little bit on water resources because that's the focus of W4W a bit, but we also would maintain that you need to be thinking about the whole system. You need to be thinking about soil, atmosphere, and ecosystems as well. Also within climate, it can be very carbon-centric, but water plays an extremely big role, and carbon is part of the water cycle. And when we think about climate change, it's expressed at ground level through hydrological extremes, drought, fire, flood, heat waves, the absence of water or too much water. And our stewardship of the land can determine a lot of this. This is our focus. So water is unique. It changes phases and it changes locations. We pose the question, is there such a thing as water scarcity? Because we have the same amount of water as we have for a very, very long time. It cycles. We have rising atmospheric moisture, and we're getting more extreme rain events. We have rising sea levels. On land, in some places, we have water scarcity. And through the stewardship of the land, through having ecosystems, we can change, well, we can enable atmospheric moisture and ocean moisture to participate in healthier water cycles. There's a fantastic animation there that people can have a look at. I'll share the slideshow. It's showing how forests actually create rain, and that's a really important driver of climate in big rainforests. They create their own rain. They have their own mechanism for drawing rain in. Ali, if you could speak to this one, this would be great. Ali's great at the technical stuff. I'm better at the more general stuff. Oh, you're on mute there, Ali.
Okay, so thank you, Steve, for inviting me here. So I'll take it from where Steve left, and he was talking about the way plants can actually generate their own rain and their own cooling. And think of it like in the Earth's atmosphere, there's like 4% effect of is because the greenhouse effect is 4% because of the carbon dioxide, and most of the thermal greenhouse gas effect is generated by water vapor, which accounts for about 96%. And when you talk about forests, the forests actually they take the water from the surface level and they evaporate it in form of vapor. And when they do that, they actually use a lot of energy, which is latent energy. And you can see from this diagram, which sort of like tries to explain it. So water as a liquid, when it goes through the leaves, it is released as water vapor, and about 2,260 joules per gram of energy is used in that process. And when that vapor goes into the atmosphere, it again condenses again and forms droplets. And generally, when it happens, it's above the greenhouse gas layer. So it's above the carbon dioxide layer, and carbon dioxide, which acts as a blanket, it actually dissipates that heat above that blanket. So in a way, it's dissipating the heat outside the Earth. It goes into the space. So that's how trees can actually sort of like take away the excess heat from the surface and release them to the atmosphere. And this is part of the reason why this energy then actually, if you have a sort of like your Amazon rainforest or things, which is a huge rainforest, this energy actually draws and creates an implosion effect, and it actually draws in trade winds from other areas. And this is what is known as the biotic pump effect. I don't have a slide for it right here, but that's how the biotic pump works. And it brings in the coastal moisture inland. Generally, the coastal moisture will only reach till 600 kilometers if there is no biotic pump effect. But when you have that biotic pump effect working, it can go as deep as 3,000 kilometers inside. So Amazon actually recycles the moisture, the coastal moisture, 7 times before it reaches the 3,000 kilometers mark. Otherwise, the moisture would just finish around at 600 kilometers mark. So, Steve, can we go on to the next slide?
Yep.
So
Right.
basically, what we are saying is that there's no there's no scarcity myth. There's no scarcity of water. It's only a matter of things being in the wrong place. So carbon dioxide is in the wrong place when it's in the sky, and water is in the wrong space when it's in the form of vapor and doesn't condenses. So when it does condense, it actually creates the cooling effect. And trees are the essential element that actually help to do that. Over to you, Steve. You can take over.
Yep. Along these lines, more on the climate space, which is super integrated with water resources as well, all interlinked. The current climate consensus is that it's too late. That's by scientists who have been sharing their data for decades, and they're talking about geoengineering. Lots of this geoengineering is atmospheric or stratospheric particles, creating different types of clouds. It's high ongoing input, and it's risky. We don't know the different effects. A certain country may do it, and another country may experience the consequences of it, and therefore there's all sorts of implications there. What we're saying is that there are natural mechanisms that nature has, these zero input moderating of climate features that are even more effective. They're creating solar reflecting clouds at lower altitudes that are giving rain. The ecosystems are creating them. They're creating it at 2 degrees warmer. This is a particular cloud condensation bacteria, Pseudomonas syringae. So nature has all these different strategies. We need to, instead of going for the high input technology, we need to go for the no input ecology. And there's incredible potential in these. So this is a message that we want to share, because this isn't the current climate paradigm. There's a big emphasis on experimenting with geoengineering. Can you expand on that a bit for us, please, Ali?
Yeah, I'll take over from here. So basically, what we're saying is that when we have the nature acting as a taking care of the climate for millions of years, we can certainly use it again to take care of the climate in the coming years as well. So I mentioned earlier that forests are the main reason, but forests, they actually have some other mechanisms as well by which they support the cloud condensation, by which they support managing the water cycles. And one of them is they release biogenic aerosols. And these biogenic aerosols, they actually go into that atmosphere, and since it's a property of life that it will only, it kinds of goes to the water or attracts water. So when these biogenic aerosols, most of them are some of them like Pseudomonas syringae is actually a live bacteria. It actually attracts water towards itself. It brings the water from the atmosphere and condenses it around itself, because it can only survive with water. And that's how these biogenic aerosols, they actually work with water to actually create water droplets. Now, the funny thing about Pseudomonas syringae is that it actually decreases the temperature it is required generally for condensation. So there can be a difference as much as 5 to 10 degrees in terms of the normally if the condensation is occurring say at like 15 degrees, Suryanamasangi can do the condensation even at 25 degrees Celsius, which is amazing because generally you will see that condensation normally needs a lower temperature or a very high amount of moisture in the atmosphere to reach the dew point. So generally in land or urban areas, the water vapor will be released, but then it will go at high up in the elevation. For example, in Pakistan or in other places which have, we call them northern areas in our place. So when the water goes, vapor evaporates from cities and urban areas and rural areas, which are land areas which are low elevation, it will eventually rain in Uttarakhand region or in northern areas of Pakistan, Murray, etc. Because of the orographic effect, which helps the water to condense. But trees, they actually play a very interesting role. They release that biogenic aerosols, and they can actually cause the moisture to fall as rain even in low-lying areas. And that rain is not from the main wind circulations or main weather system. It's a local phenomenon. So that's why you call it a small water cycle. Can we go on to the next slide?
Mhm.
Which brings me to the design methodology that we follow. So the design methodology that we follow is, the first is, as is the land, so is the sky. So if you have a land which is devoid of any vegetation, which is barren, it will generally give rise to a sky or a climate which is barren. So you will have a drought and a flood cycle. Either there will be no rain or there will be a lot of rain. And this is because it takes a lot of time for water to condense itself in form of a cloud system in areas which do not have any trees or stuff like that. So a barren surface like a desert will have rain events which occur in 6 months, 8 months, sometimes even years. And when they do occur, it's such a huge event that all of the water is generally wasted off. It becomes runoff, causes a lot of erosion, and then the cycle continues, the cycle of disruption, the cycle of erosion and destruction of the atmosphere of the ground ecosystems. And the sun is that and the sky is the reflection of that. So we take this as the first principle: as the land, so is the sky. So when you're looking at a land and you want to see whether how would the rains be, you can just look at this principle and understand. So if it's a city is like a barren desert landscape in the sense that it's concrete and the desert is just has nothing in it, but it's still in the same way doesn't generate cooling or other things like trees do. So it's sort of similar to a desert. So a degraded land gives rise to barren sky. It has high temperatures, extreme weather events, and disrupted water cycles. While a living land will give rise to a living sky, which has moderate temperatures, regular rainfall, and stable climate patterns. Can we go to the next slide?
Mhm.
And then there's a second principle. Water is the medium that connects land to sky. So when you don't have that connection and this, I'll talk about this a little later, but right now for understanding, land is connected to the sky by water. And this is why when you have a dead land, your water cycles will be very transient. They will not be steady state. They will happen over a long period of time. And when you have a living land, you will have a feedback loop in which the trees evaporate the water, and the water then condenses back, falls again as rain, and you have a continuous cycle. So what are the natural mechanisms that do it? It's transpiration from vegetation, then the surface water evaporation, soil moisture exchange, and groundwater upwelling. When it rains, it infiltrates. So it's a complete cycle. Next slide, please. And the third slide, this is the fundamentally most important principle when you're doing climate repair work, and that is water needs time and space to actually give rise to life. What that means is even if you have water like in deserts, but if it's a fast water, the fast water will just degrade the land even more. But if it's slow water, it's like it's intercepted by the canopies and then by the surface layer and the understory and then the surface layer and then the microbial layer and the mycorrhiza and the fungi. It will infiltrate slowly, giving life to each and every element in that stack. And that actually creates that what gives the water the ability to give life to multiple organisms. So when you're looking at land, and this is why when Steve will talk about the design that we're using in maximum filtration, this sets up that stage for that. So we are looking at fast water, and we try to create life to actually intercept that fast water and convert it into slow water. And when you don't have life and you don't have stable ecosystems, you have to look at certain elements from engineering or from our other backgrounds to act as stopgap measures, to act as repair mechanisms to give that time and space to water to actually bring back life. Steve, go ahead. This is a small diagram. So fast water is generally destructive. It doesn't touch the ground. It just flows over it. And the slow water will actually touch the ground. It will infiltrate it. It will give rise to trees. It will fill the aquifers. So it gives life not only to the natural ecosystems, but also to the humans as well. And then the second thing is you have to spread it. If you don't spread it across, so you give it time and then you spread it across. By spreading across, you want the water layer to be spread across a large area. And the larger the area that the water has, the larger it tries to give life to. This is just a small slide. It's basically just to bring out all the information that I discussed before. So the benefits of slowing are increased infiltration, groundwater recharge, nutrient cycling, soil building, sustained flows. And the benefit of spreading is that it increases biological access. It creates better nutrient distribution. It reduces flood risk, increases biodiversity, and creates resilient ecosystems. So this is this video which we are showing right now is basically based on these three principles, and then and how we explore it further. Steve, it's over to you.
How can deserts be transformed rapidly into rainforest? Deserts have rare rain events and can experience extreme runoff when it finally does rain. Evaporation is very high. We can capture extreme rain runoff in long swales and store it in a dam. We can then release the water to a fuelless pump that pumps water to higher water storage. The pump is powered by water. A percentage is pumped and the majority is discharged. The pump can be turned on and off with a high-flow, unpowered evaporation-activated valve. This means that the discharged pump water is never too much for the soil or plants. The valve doesn't need electricity, internet or Wi-Fi. It is a reliable low-tech innovation, making it ideal for remote sites and tough conditions. The pump is self-regulating and self-priming. By providing regular moisture at appropriate rates over large areas, plus fuelless pumping, we can rehydrate and regenerate deserts. We can increase infiltration time by 100. This means pioneer plant species can start growing and soil can be improved. The rapid improved water cycle will help regenerate at the fastest rate possible. This enables supercharged plant succession. Rapid recharge of groundwater with rain improves groundwater quality and raises the water table of the surrounding area. Fresh water is less dense and sits on top of the poorer quality water. Trees and vegetation can also regulate the water table and salinity. The best place to store water, store carbon, and grow food is in the soil.
So that's one application called maximum infiltration. There's a range of other applications as well. I don't know if I skipped one slide. No, I don't think so. One point I want to make here is that with the water soil interface happening a lot more frequently and at healthy aerobic amounts. That's a multiplying and compounding element. As well as that, you've got all these other simultaneous ecological improvements as well. You've got fungi. Mycologists talk about hundreds of this fold increase in nutrient and water efficiency for plants. So there's massive gains there. Soil structure, active soils need moisture in the right amounts to be active, to get good aggregation so that water can get down in there. When you're infiltrating rainwater and the groundwater is rising, the better quality water, the fresher water, sits on top of the poorer quality, more dense water. So you're getting a water quality improvement as well as it rising. So there's a whole lot of interconnected benefits, including climate, including water, including productivity, all happening simultaneously. So that's what we find is really exciting. So this is some of the different applications. Maximum infiltration is one. I'll just detail a couple of interesting ones. I think fuelless pumped hydro storage is very interesting as well. So that's using a water-powered pump. You're not capturing all the water, you're also enhancing the water cycle of that area. So it's twofold. It's enhancing the water cycle and fuelless pumped hydro storage. From a design aspect, having the ability to move water around on site for free is a big advantage. And there may be benefits in benefiting from the orographic effect, where on the windward side, there might be moisture condensing as it comes up to a mountain range or hills, and you may get more cloud formation than having that same restoration happening on the leeward side. So there's a whole new world of design possibilities. Interesting is for drylands, a strategy, instead of putting water into the landscape, we've got high evaporation, you're containing it within small concrete structures, and you're having a pipeline with multiple pumps in series. So you had 10 pumps in series, you can pump the discharge water 9 times. So the majority of the water is discharged and powers the pump, and a smaller percentage is pumped. But if you're able to pump it many times, you're able to add water at any point at these concrete structures, or you can do direct bore well recharge into the landscape. Infiltrating and pumping snowmelt as well can double usable water in a cold climate in some cases. Do you want me to talk to this one, Ali, or to give you a pitch here? Okay, he probably doesn't want to talk about himself. That's fine. I wouldn't either. So Ali writes a Substack, Regenesis. It's focused, it's a earth systems thinking, it's looking at water cycles, it's looking at soil, mycology, fungi, nutrient cycles. So it's taking all this into account, and Ali's fantastic at quantifying and proposing design solutions on large landscapes with all this understanding. So he draws from scientists all over the world, the cutting edge climate research, which is great. And he's got a strong growing following in the climate community. And then, yeah, we think this is a really exciting way of getting from degraded to regenerated rapidly. And we're looking to collaborate with projects and people around the world. So if you can, if this excites you, get in touch with us. And we believe that unpowered technology accelerating ecosystems, we think it has the potential to play a significant role in safely cooling the planet. And we hope we've made that case today.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, both of you. Thanks a lot for this presentation, because we make a passing remark as public speakers, often saying that, okay, water has to go slowly, water has to be spread all around. But I think both of you presented it in a very simple, nice and short way, especially when Ali was talking about the 3 principles. It was quite evident for me that what we talk in 2 lines can be explained scientifically when we go to schools and colleges to teach about it. Let me just now invite Haadiya Abbas to get on board and have the discussion further with both of you as our discussant for the day. Haadiya Abbas is an architect with a background in sustainable urban design and has a passion for systems thinking. Over the years, she has focused on researching projects and that bridges ecological needs with human-centric spaces, particularly in the context of climate resilience and basic water cycles. Her works focus on writing and research where she dives into topics like embodied carbon, adaptive reuse, and heritage conservation. She believes in the power of collaborative interdisciplinary solutions to address today's environmental challenges. Her recent projects include designing a carbon-neutral theme park and proposing adaptive reuse strategies to minimize carbon footprints in urban areas. So, Haadiya, you saw both the guys presenting the work, and I was trying to relate it with the way I can look at our desert landscape and also transcend the whole idea into urban landscape as well. It should not be limited to desert landscape, but wherever the landscape is stressed and I think devoid of nature, we can talk about these kind of technologies. But I will stop here and invite you to get on board and really have this discussion further as a citizen so that we can also get more clarity, especially towards the end. I'm also going to ask questions, how can we really apply this? Because if to me, it sounds quite doable, and I'm sure Ali and Steve have tried out there, so we can also discuss towards the end some case studies. Over to you, Haadiya, and thank you so much for taking out time.
Hi everyone.
May I
Thanks
request you to
Nancy
get your
for
video on? Is it
all
possible
right.
for you to get your video on? Because then it will be better.
Sure, let me do that.
Yeah.
Hi, thanks Nancy for letting me take over. So I would like to get to a few of the questions that I had while I was listening to the presentations, and you guys did explain very simply, but I will have a few things that I'd like to discuss. So first of all, I'd like to ask, I mean, as an urban, background in architecture and all, I like to question how we can, what systems can we effectively implement in our current urban spaces so that we won't have to implement, invasive strategies to improve rainfall in our urban areas. Because of course, due to carbon dioxide and other systems beyond carbon dioxide, rainfall does become very scarce in these areas once, construction increases and more urban spaces are created. So I would like to ask you both, what systems can we effectively implement, like in our current spaces, in our current homes, that can improve rainfall in our areas?
Sorry, just intersecting in between. May I request to close the PowerPoint so that we can have all three of you on the screen? Yeah, thank you so much.
Okay, Steve, do you want me to answer that?
Yeah, that'd be good.
Okay. Actually, we didn't discuss that. This is a pretty complex topic. We didn't discuss how to increase bioprecipitation, even in desert landscapes. So this was most of the time just how to regenerate landscape so that it can actually bear life. But your topic is a little bit advanced for this conversation right now. If you want, I can go into this, but this is going to be a rabbit hole. It has like 10 principles, and if I go into this discussion, it's not going to finish in the next 30 minutes.
Well, give us the short version.
Okay, I'll give you the short.
Or I can ask something else then.
I'll give you the short version. I'll try to explain
Sure.
it in a shorter way. So basically, when you look at an urban city, it has a lot of similarities with what you see in a desert. And the thing is that in urban cities and deserts, there's the only evaporation that's occurring is either through land bodies, like water bodies, or the water that's being taken away from the soil, and the soil gets dried. Same thing happens more or less with the cities. You have people drying their clothes, and that's probably it, or some lakes in the cities, or a little bit of water bodies. But generally, cities in particularly in Pakistan, and I don't know about India, but mostly in Pakistan, the cities are mostly devoid of forests and trees. So if the first thing you want to take care of is control the uh, somehow create spaces for city for forest to grow in cities. So there are multiple techniques for doing that. There's a Miyawaki technique for which the Japanese use, which creates very fast forests, and then you can also create certain buffers in the system. So the principle third principle that I told you was that water needs time and space to give birth to life. This is true for the land, but when the land heals, it actually heals the sky as well, i.e., the climate. So you will need to put in some speed breakers or shock absorbers in your road networks. Like for instance, you can create rain gardens in the green belts so that all the runoff water gets seeped into those places. You'll also need certain underground water catchment areas, because generally in cities, streets and roads are the nodes that the water takes the path to. So it won't generally follow the topography, although because the roads are already following topography of the land. But generally it will just you just look at the road network and just put across that road network certain speed bumps, uh, i.e., shock absorbers that absorb that extra water. Then use that water to create green zones in the city. You can also use the rooftops as semi green spaces in which you can actually catch water on your roof and just grow certain plants that will actually create cooling surfaces on your roof and actually give off some biogenic aerosols, release them. But then the city has another problem, which is a lot of pollutants in the city, and which actually compete with water vapor to create smog and all of those things, which India and Pakistan right now are facing. But that there's another reason for that, which is not part of this discussion. So you will also need to take care of that aerosols and somehow sequester them, somehow cleanse the air of those. And trees can also take part in that. There's certain trees, there's certain plants which actually have waxy coatings, and they actually absorb that aerosols and bring them on, combine them on their leaves, and that's how somehow that aerosols can come inside. Then the third thing is you need to take care of the wind shear, because when the condensation occurs, it needs condensation nuclei, but also needs a certain amount of air speed. If it's more than that, the winds will take away the clouds from the city, and it will rain somewhere else, not on your landscape, but in some other place. So you need to take care of that wind speeds as well. Uh, if you're really interested in knowing more about this, I have written about this on my blog, and currently there's a series which is probably going to be 21 plus articles in that, which actually specifically talks about these interactions. But I try to explain it in a way which tries to explain it that you need life in the city in the form of forests, so that it can give off that extra cooling effect and create rain.
And just
Haadi-
emphasizing something, oh, sorry, emphasizing
Yeah.
something in the same way that the bare soil pushes away rain, architects and urban planners need to understand that concrete and no vegetation is actively pushing away their rain as well. So yeah, got
All
to
right.
design the green.
Thank you for that response. Sorry, it was a bit off topic.
No.
But
It was not off topic. It was not off topic. I just tried. We don't have that much time. Like 30 minutes left. So I just wanted to cover as much as possible and not go into too much of intricacies of how we control that aspect. Thank you. No problem.
You may be frozen.
Yeah, she probably has. Internet connection.
Oh, she's back.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Then that is very bad here. Apologies. So I'd like to get to my next question. So as Steve was discussing his initiative and everything. So do the same influences and dynamics that affect deserts apply in urban areas?
Mm-hmm. Was that relating to urban cities and desert, you were saying?
Yeah. Yes.
Absolutely. Yep. Heat, moisture, aerosols, cooling effect of vegetation. Yes, 100%.
So what are the greatest challenges facing water resources right now, like in urban spaces or in other areas as well?
I would say lack of long-term stewardship and management of the land. They're not thinking in terms of ecosystems. They're thinking in terms of trees are houses ready to be cut down. You know, they're timber ready for houses. It's very resource focused. You can manage in a way that you get the timber for houses and you have healthy water cycles. It just takes a more thorough design process, and you can grow your trees faster. If that answers the question there,
Yeah, it does. I totally understand that now. So, can unpowered technology, going towards unpowered technology and the main point that you discussed in the start, can unpowered technology accelerating ecosystems be applied at large scales? And could this have a beneficial impact on moderating climate, improving water resources, and boosting productivity?
Yes, there's a lot of variation and applications that unpowered technology can do. It's very simple. The pump itself, it only requires as little as a foot of fall. It can pump to quite high elevations, hundreds of meters. There's all sorts of different variations. It's all about optimizing water's interaction with the landscape. Water is the potential for life, and if you can optimize that with understandings of how nature works, there's all sorts of different applications, and it can be applied anywhere, really. One point we emphasize is that all ecosystems are dynamic always. So any ecosystem can be changed at any point through the stewardship of the land. So that's a really exciting possibility.
So, as Ali was discussing regarding degraded lands, is there a way that we can fully refurbish them, or are they like totally unusable at some point? Because as of course in those areas, water cycles are less than the livable lands that are being used, or agricultural lands for some, as if we talk about those. So can degraded lands be refurbished and revitalized through man-made maybe water cycles, or actual natural water cycles be brought back to them? Is that something that can happen?
Absolutely. It can happen pretty quickly too.
So what are those ways that we can do that, like revitalize those degraded lands?
Well, it requires
I see Ali is tempted to respond. Go ahead, Ali. Go ahead, add to what Steve is saying.
I was laughing because Steve just answers, okay, oh yes, absolutely.
Yes,
So
yes. Steve is responding in the way I usually do my public talks, I mean, then I think we need Ali at the background to really detail it out. Okay, how it is going to happen. Go ahead, Ali.
Okay. So your question was, can you just repeat it again so that I can try and answer each bit in a little more detail?
It's a very basic question, but like, can we revitalize degraded lands with like natural water cycles again? Because like you said,
Yes,
there's less of them on there. So how
yes.
can we do that?
If you go back to the principles, there was I told you that you have three principles, and you can look at any landscape in any part of the world, whether it's a cold landscape or a dry desert like landscape. You use those three principles. First of all, see if the water cycles are broken, and that if you look at the land, it's barren. If the rain occurs very fast, and there's a flash floods occurring, and there's a you have disruption in the groundwater cycle, your groundwater is going low every year, then it probably means you have a broken water cycle in that place. So the first thing is you understand that you have a problem. And the second thing is you understand that you need to play with water. You have to work with water to actually give life to the land. That's why water connects land and sky. And the third is you need to put in speed breakers. Just like, look, imagine you have a house and you have a water supply coming in 24, and the water supply comes twice a day, and you don't have a water tank in that space. So what happens? You have only water for 2 hours, and for the next 22 hours you are without water. Now you just put a tank inside your home. Now the water comes, it gets stored in the tank, and then you can use it the entire day. That's kind of what we are doing with the landscapes. That's what MI is about. That's what we were talking about, the MI. And this is what the forests are actually doing. We actually just took what nature is doing. We just broke that down into a crude system which can actually do the same thing till the nature can take over that. So nature can take over and you can use our system even when the nature is working, because in our time scales, when we look at trees, it's probably 5 or 6 years or 10 years we look at them. But in forest, in the tree language, it's 80 years is just like infancy for the forests. So bringing back to your question, yes, we can repair any landscape and bring it to a better condition than it's in when it's in a degraded state. And we can support those landscapes which are already in, for example, Amazon rainforest. It's already a climax ecosystem in many places, but there are certain zones outside with their human involvement, and they are actually cutting off forests or bringing roads. And you can actually bring this system in that space and to bring more life to that area and in those zones as well. So the principles are the same. You just use those principles wherever you, even if when you're looking at your house, you can use the same principles to cool your house.
Mm-hmm.
So
Can I add?
so there's always been this question in my mind every time I travel or I see some sort of development in my current area. So as an urban planner, I always hate the idea of, roads being built and forests being cut down, and, the whole idea of like the current weather being disrupted a lot because, vegetation is being cut down. But then they replace them with these, scant trees and everything. So like alongside on the green belts and everything, how are those, like, how can we, for me as an architect, yes, of course, I know that adding more greenery and adding more open spaces kind of like uplifts the spaces. But as a, as in your field, how do you think we can kind of improve those things? Not cut down trees, not, not create accessible spaces. So, I mean, where does the balance happen in that area? I mean, where do you think, how much, how less of trees, you can cut down, as a landscape architect as well, thinking about it as well. The trees can we cut down, and how can we like improve the spaces other than those forests that we talked about that kind of create rainfall, that kind of create like a better current environment?
Steve, you want to answer this question?
Sure. A couple of points. One is there's sort of a conservation mindset of let's get all our resources and needs from a particular area, maybe rainforest, and then we've got this other area which is protected forest and no one can touch that. Unfortunately, lots of conserved forest is in an ecological downward spiral. It's actually falling apart on its own, unfortunately. That may be due to water cycles, carbon, a whole range of issues. I think we need to be more proactive than that. We need to have a different design mentality that we get our needs from restored ecosystems and we're enhancing all of it. You could think of our strategies as an afforestation or a reforestation process that's providing that initial catalyst that's really hard from degraded to the first signs of life. Or equally in a forest, lots of forests have lots of pest and disease pressure. They're trees, they're just like standing matchsticks. And you see places like Canada and other It's where they've got massive monocultures.
What Steve is saying basically.
So
sorry, you just hung up.
Yep. Okay, I'll just finish the thought. So instead of fire burning the fuel load, we can rehydrate, humidify, and get more fungi. And we've got fungi breaking down the fire fuel load. That's fungi's role in nature to bring the biomass into the soil. So it can restore healthy forest as well. So as well as afforestation, reforestation, healthy forests. So, and not a conservation mindset, but a regenerative mindset. It's a different design process, really. Yep.
What Steve is basically saying is that human beings are not just the criminals that we are portrayed to be in the climate space. Human beings can actually act as the agents of bringing positive change. So there should not be any exclusive or zone. You don't just look at human beings as just the enemy that's destroyed the planet, because we can actually improve the planet, improve the ecosystems if we work as stewards and not as just profiteers. So the mindset is not it's of a regenerative mindset, not a profiteering mindset, which unfortunately these current systems seem to encourage. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And there is livelihoods in a regenerative mindset. It's not about we have to leave nature alone and you can't have an income from working with nature or producing. So just emphasizing that point, that there's incredible life as well that's possible.
Haadiya, please unmute yourself. I think we lost link, but until we get her, I think I will pose my question, because I'm really holding myself back to ask a couple of questions. One very important aspect which Steve, you raised, is the way we look at landscape in urban areas. And as a resource only to be extracted and exploited to large extent. You were meaning that in that context, Ali was still adding to the point that yes, we can restore, when Haadiya was asking how we can we restore urban forests and all. And I want to just share with you that in India, very recent, we have an added policy that every city must develop urban forest. Now, my question to both of you is, when we are talking about increasing the forest cover, the share of water, where is it going to come from? Because what is happening in India is 80% of ground water extraction is happening, and we see many cities are greening the cities, but I get very alarmed when we are greening the cities by drawing groundwater. But when I'm looking at your technology, I'm at least getting a relief and an optimism that we need not draw groundwater to make our land green, because I think that's a very, very difficult, or we are actually putting ourselves into bigger risk. What is your take on this? Because you're talking about surface water regeneration, as far as I could understand, which will slowly regenerate the groundwater. But I think all green is not good. That is my understanding as well, which we are going really, really crazy about. What's your take? So Haadiya is back, but I think you can answer my point and then we can take her again.
Sure. I can make a couple of points on that. Or Ali, you can
go ahead. You can go ahead, and then once you have done it, I'll just take it from there.
Yes, I agree, Mansi. That's definitely groundwater. Using groundwater depletes the groundwater. And as I was talking about water quality, you're also putting often nutrient load affecting pH balances and productivity, and you're depleting your resource. One analogy that we think of, we think about a bank account system where you might have a credit card and you're depleting.
You just touched my heart, because I'm always using the banking system to explain people about water. So it's really important. People understand it very well, the banking system.
That's good. A lot of water harvesting strategies that are good, we think of as a savings account, which is good. But what we're implying with us and the multiple of regeneration and rehydration that's possible, because we're not a passive strategy, we've got some active components and the ecosystem responds really fast to that. So we're like a bank account with a super high interest rate, which has a compounding effect. And we all need one of those bank accounts. Yes.
Okay. I'll try to answer your question, Mansi. So generally, if you look at, in Pakistan, we had 20 floods in 2022. And I did a very in-depth analysis of that, and about 28 billion cubic meters of water were lost during the floods. So my question is, basically my idea that you have to look at it. There are floods happening in Catania, Valencia, Spain right now.
Yeah, right now, yes.
There are floods happening in many other parts of the world. Every flood is an opportunity
Yes.
for you to catch that water. And if you can catch that water, in one our method is one of those methods in which you can catch it. It's not the only method. There are multiple other methods as well. Catch that water to regenerate your landscape. Once you have regenerated the landscape, you have done two things. You have protected your city infrastructure or rural infrastructure from the floods. And potentially, if Pakistan had just had like 2,000 square kilometers of riverine ecosystems, there would have been no flood in Pakistan. And I just did just completed another post. I have not posted right now. Pakistan could have easily tackled a flood which was 100 times more severe than 2022 floods with no flooding, if it had riverine ecosystems. And look at the amount of water you will get from that, and you can use that water as a resource to regenerate your landscape. And then you do the other thing. Once you have the ecosystems in place, you start getting more balanced environment, more balanced climate, and you have frequent rains. And those frequent rains will eventually lead to even lesser flooding effects. And if it happens because of your neighboring country, or because of a broken dam, or because of a war instance, even then that ecosystem will be able to manage that extra load of water, the water stress that it has. And not only manage it, it can actually use it as an opportunity to regenerate other landscapes. So the problem again is, if you ask me, the principle that I shared, there was another principle which I skipped from this because it's not a political discussion, and that as your land is, so is your heart. The last one was that. And your heart, the way you look at things, if you have a greedy heart, a profiteering heart, a heart that looks only at the profit making, you will never use any ecosystem in its correct way. You will again look at it as how can I make the most profit out of it. And this is how generally the climate space right now is, and it will get even worse in the next 10 years or so, because everyone is entering this space. Just very few people are there for the genuineness of their heart. Mostly the corporations are coming in because it's a $75 trillion industry.
Everyone is now in Baku to get the share of that industry.
Yeah. So everyone is so as is the land, so is your heart. And if you heal your hearts first, and you look at things as a steward, as someone who is working with nature, with earth, with the planet, with the people. And people are not the problem. People are not the carbon that they are vilified to be, or targeted to be. You just need to look at things in nature in a way that they were meant to be seen, as stewards, as healers,
yeah, I
as
think
caregivers.
you both really brought this word very strongly, the stewardship which is required, and an optimistic way of looking at it. I see Haadiya is losing her connection frequently, so maybe I'll just continue with the point which you both raised, and a concern which I also always bring forth is, unfortunately, we are looking at water resources also from the lens of land. And we are not even discussing soil for that matter, because soil is land. That is another misconception which we look at in the urban areas, because every square inch matters. Even the valuation of water bodies is done based on the land. But I'm going to reserve you, Ali, for another discussion in another session on the riverine ecosystem, because I'm really wishing to have another session on riverine. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take Haadiya's question and pose it for you, so that we can wrap it up when Haadiya is joining or not joining. So she is bringing some question on unpowered technology, and she's talking about why is there such a strong emphasis on unpowered technology. I would like to hear from you, but I'm also tempted why it is important. I think we have to go for it, but I would like to hear a little bit more. And also maybe you can highlight what exactly you mean by unpowered technology for my sake. Over to you.
Mhm.
Steve.
Yep. Unpowered technology. So in this instance, between the pump and the unpowered evaporation activated valve, there isn't any internet Wi-Fi power. So
Yeah,
that's
yeah, it was interesting.
yeah.
So
that
how is it working then? Is it
gravity, evaporation.
gravity? Yeah, so it's more common
all that
sense and conscience then,
That's
along
right.
with the science.
Yeah. So that's super important to us because we want bulletproof things. We see a lot of fragility in relying on centralized technology, relying on other people for solutions. We think there's incredible independence and autonomy that people can determine their own futures.
Absolutely. It's a more
in
bottom-up
development.
approach also. People can take it and do it on their own instead of large infrastructure. So this is more empowering as well in that sense, if I understand.
Definitely.
Right?
And the other key aspect is the nature is a self-replicating living system. So all these carbon capture and storage machines or high input agriculture, they're not very, they're extremely fragile. Whereas unpowered technology, there's very little risk there. And self-replicating living systems, it's quite a bulletproof strategy. And then all these powerful technology tools, there is merit to them, but they complement a really stable base that meets all your needs.
So I mean, until Haadiya joins, I want to ask one more question to both of you. I mean, if Mahira, you want to join in here and add something which these two guys have been talking, because you have been also partner to this initiative, and I will definitely take you on board here. Just to understand from you, when you are doing these projects live with your community or client, let's say, I'm sure it is more bottom up the way you have also presented that it is empowering people to take things on the hands on. I just want to understand the whole issue of now many invasive species which are coming on board. I think a beautiful point raised by one of you was even the forest is in danger right now. The what we consider as a forest, it itself is going through a lot of issues. And in one of my projects, we had serious invasive species issue. So when we are doing these kind of let's say initiatives and we want to regenerate the landscape, and by regenerating you are talking both, I mean all three, regenerating the soil, the vegetation, as well as the water. This is what I understood and gathered from your talk, and for me that was very enriching, because then all three had to come together, and the best line for me was that water is connecting land and the sky for that. So how are you dealing with a landscape where there is already invasive species, let's say? What do you really do with it? I'm asking from my own project problem, actually, from central India. And we have to restore the landscape, let's say. What should be the stand? I mean, my partner is really trying to get rid of the invasive species, but I think it is naive for us to really think of it.
Can I make a quick point there, Mansi, for
Yeah, go ahead.
invasive species? Just say in Australia, there's invasive species as a big emphasis on spraying. So if you're killing the invasive species, another similar plant or the same will come back and fill that ecological function.
Absolutely.
So you're either able to choose your allies, there might be some sort of plant that fulfills that function, occupies that space, or you try and progress the succession past that invasive species, whether shade crowds it out or something else. So it's a couple of strategies, but definitely taking it back to bare dirt will get the same result, because that invasive species is fulfilling a role that is not occupied by the native species.
Go ahead.
Yes,
I'll add a bit. I'll add a few lines as well. Generally, invasive species are a symptom, and is a symptom of a land condition or some underlying problem that the land has. And in places like large land masses, like in the Asian Asian continent and all of these things connected, invasive species are not really a problem, because it's just a matter of they are there because they're telling you there's a certain problem in your land, and you can just like Steve mentioned, go past that point, and the invasive species will go away. In fact, there have been studies in which they showed invasive species are just exploiting a certain condition of a land in which they tend to be very competitive with other plants. But if the natives you can improve that condition, the natives will outcompete them in every other aspect, and eventually they'll go away. So you have weeds when you disturb the soil, and weeds are conditioned that your soil doesn't have any cover, and you put on your local cover crops or whatever coverage that you have. Look, they will take away the invasive species away, and they generally have even better productivity rates than the invasives. But in a certain condition, invasives are the best suited plant for that condition. So
I'm
just
sure.
find out that condition.
Yeah, whatever land is growing, we have to accept it as the best possible land could grow out of
Yeah,
that
so I tend to
situation.
I tend to think of it like this, but there are certain species in which, for example, in animals, if you went to Madagascar and you had the dodo living there, and you brought in cats and dogs, and the dodo will go away because the land is not meant for the cats and dogs. But in generally in large land masses, and particularly with plant invasives, you can easily manage them. It, it's difficult with animals, but it's a little easier with the plants. But this is a very controversial area. There's a lot of
Yeah,
there's a
lot of
lot of
work to be
yeah
done, to be honest.
yeah.
So I want to come back to the innovation and the initiative which you are both are taking up and understand the aquatic life. So when we're talking about regenerating water and then regenerating the forest or the vegetative landscape, yeah, being a water person, I'm really curious to understand whenever you are talking about regenerating water, are you also talking about life inside the water as well? Or it's more of an engineering approach to get the water, to get the land regenerated? Just a clarification I need.
Uh,
Do I make
if you,
myself clear with the question?
yeah. If you're
Yeah,
talking
okay.
if you're talking about PSKL is generally
Mm.
land regeneration company, so we talk only
Okay.
about this. But if you're talking about
Mm.
regenesis, that's my
Mm.
other project. If you're talking about that, then you just certainly and Steve helps me in that as well. In regenesis, we actually look at land over the land and in the water as well. So if you go back there, you will see there was an ocean exploration series. There's an ocean exploration series in which I touched upon diatoms and their role in creating
Mm.
bioprecipitation and stuff. And it's a pretty comprehensive series. There are probably 4 articles, 4 30 20 minute art posts in it. Just have a look at them. Probably
I will,
you'll
definitely.
get some understanding from there. And then there's the other aspect, which is water on land, for example, which is maybe sewage water or sewage entering river systems.
Mm-hmm.
And then how do you tackle them? And then again, we have to bring life in the water to tackle those systems. And the unpowered technologies help because they can constantly circulate water, and you don't have any energy budgets, and you can run them 24/7, unlike solar systems which run only during the day. So with the unpowered technologies, you can just cycle them, and you can use those aquatic life inside the land, inside the water, plus the aquatic plants and the flora fauna which lives on the land, to create systems which can uh, bring synergy and remove the waste, and can use that as a resource. So for me and Steve, every waste is basically an opportunity
Mm.
in which you can use to regenerate systems and bring systems in balance.
Just to understand a little further, what is a scale where you have really experimented this form of initiatives? Because that will be also good to understand, because we have
Yeah.
huge desert also here, but I also understand that this we can also try degraded landscape, not necessarily desert. And I know Haadiya had more questions on the urban part, because I also come from architecture urban design background, but I'm holding on my urban question. But I think urban landscape can be also considered as one of the degraded landscapes in that sense. But what is the scale where you are really experimenting these initiatives, and what is the upscaling possibility? And if you can give some example for us.
Sure. We're a startup. We're early
Mm.
days in innovation.
Mm.
The water-powered pump's been around for 20 years, so that's well proven. Keyline design and modified keyline design that we've used has been around since 1950. So that's another in Australia as well. So they're both well proven. So we're combining the two.
Okay.
In terms of our own projects, we're looking for various projects, and yeah, we've got some fantastic networks of various people, but still in initial stages. We are getting
Interesting.
contacted by some big players because they can see that there's something interesting and rapid in what we're doing. So that's good. So it'll just be a matter of time, and keen to
I'm
hear from
sure.
people as well.
Yeah.
If
So
they've got
I
projects.
will, yeah, I will be keen to understand if we can really see something to do with the wastewater reuse, like the nature-based solutions is very popular nowadays in India, just like Miyawaki forest is getting very popular. I mean, I have my own reservation in the way we look at, this panacea of one approach, but I'm sure we have to experiment and find out the adaptability of all these ideas. So I think the way you try to explain the approach, I think it can be an overlay, and I think that's why Haadiya was the best discussant for us today. How can we really bring the urban landscape and the degraded landscape and really experiment some scales? Whether it is a good to explore it at a neighborhood scale, which I personally understand from your presentation today, that we can experiment in neighborhood scale. For example, in India, almost every a few square kilometers we have lakes, for example, and each of these lakes are interconnected. So I mean, I'm already imagining bioswales, which we have lost, by the way, and I'm going for a project next week to Hyderabad for 2 weeks to really find out if we can work on. So it's like a brainstorming session with experts from all over the world, where we are trying to see what can be done. But so when I'm looking at your approach, I'm really seeing a possibility, if it can be looked through the urban landscape, and whatever slow or small adaptations may be required. I think that is definitely possible, but as long as philosophically and technically it can work, I'm sure it can be adapted to different situations. Ali, would you like to have any last comments on what I'm saying? And maybe then
Yeah,
Steve.
yeah. Uh, most of the time that we are developing any of the techniques, there are parts of it are already working in certain places. So we take those
Absolutely.
parts, and I just combine them together in a system integrated way. So that's what basically engineers do. So I look at different
Yeah.
systems and I integrate them together and I create a solution for that. So regarding
Yeah.
your comment, for example, if you're working with biospheres, or you're trying to find solutions in a city which cannot or does not have bare soil, but it still wants to increase its rainfall.
Yes.
So I have solutions for that, which will probably involve aquatic organisms and
Yes.
fungal spores and stuff like that, so that you can have that condensation effect, you can have that cooling effect that the trees provide, but still be able to create healthy ecosystem. So it depends on the scenario or the environment you're working on. Someone on a roof will probably cannot grow trees, so he'll probably go for something else. But there are solutions already there, and they have been work done in the whole in humanity history of the humanity. People have brought many solutions. I
Absolutely.
just integrate. We just have to find out, okay, where's the solution and how do I integrate this with the current scenario that I'm facing. So anytime you have any problem and and you just want uh, a different view of that problem, you just let me know and let Steve know. We can work on that. Mansi got.
Oh, she's frozen. Okay,
Yeah,
I'll
she
take the opportunity to. She looks deep in thought. That's good. So Mansi, I'll just add a final thought too. As well as the unpowered technology and ecosystems, another strength and something we emphasize is the understanding of how to optimize the regeneration and rehydration quickly. So that's a strength of ours, and we are part of strong scientific networks with people who are excited about the same things as us. So we feel like we're joining a wave of momentum of people who are really motivated to do this work. And we're keen to collaborate with others. We've lost our host.
Yeah, so let's wrap it up. She's back.
Sorry, I think I just lost my connection for a bit, but you please go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just saying that as well as unpowered technology, self-replicating living systems, one of our strengths and emphasis is how to it's the understanding of these natural processes and how nature has these amazing efficiency gains. A lot of this is cutting edge science, earth system science, climate science, and we feel we're joining a wave of momentum of people who are really motivated to do this work. So it's exciting joining with like-minded, passionate people.
Absolutely. I think we have to keep trying. We have to connect. I think water connects, and that's how we got connected as well. So I really wish you all the best to both of you, and I will also see where can we bring these kind of ideas, and especially I think the way you presented both of you, and it really looks that very promising. And and also the philosophical way Ali was talking about really resonates in the way I look at things. So I'm really looking forward to doing things in a more positive way from this conversation today. So I think that is a good time also to call it off for the day. I don't see Haadiya is able to join. So thank you so much, Steve and Ali, both of you, for the wonderful conversation and much more clarity, especially as a startup. And I think the best way to say, if both of you presented, is that it's a adding to the body of knowledge which is existing since antiquity. It's not something which we don't have to take a credit to be the innovator, but adding to the existing body of knowledge and bit of conscience and common sense required. And the low cost is, I think, your major, I will say, USP to really empower people to take up these kind of initiatives. I think it's now we have to see what scale can we come towards collaboration, and how can we find those important collaborations together. So I think with these words I would like to call it off for the day. Thank you once again. But before we go off the grid, I would like to also announce the forthcoming Wednesdays for Water session, which is on 27th of November at 5 p.m. IST. Do join for a discussion on river rights and responsibilities, because we almost had a situation where we were going to say river Ganga as being, but that is withdrawn. So we want to reinitiate that discussion on our platform, and we also want to talk about what are citizens' responsibilities, because we are also having Mahakumbh, which is going to come, one of the major gathering of people on river Ganga. So the next week also we have interesting Friday water art session, which is again on at 5 p.m. on November 29th, where we have a legendary boat maker, and the title of the session is Living Fossils, the Ports of Bengal, with Dr. Swaroop Bhattacharya. And all the information is going to be there on our social media and website. So do join in. Here at W4W, we are more interested in gathering the knowledge than gathering people, because we strongly believe once the knowledge is at one place, it is definitely going to reach as many as people as we can, and as many people we have as our ambassadors. And today's ambassadors, Steve and Ali and Haadiya, thank you so much, all of you, once again. Please take care of yourself. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Take care. Bye.